This episode of Speak Now, Hold Your Peace is brought to you by Green Sister Botanicals. You can reach Green Sister Botanicals at www.greensister.com. Stop complaining about them $25, $35 games.
I'm doing great, Jerry.
You like to
Thank
clap,
you so
right?
much.
You like to
Yeah,
clap? Yeah, it's all right. The brother is in the Richmond area, but he's from BK all day. Brother David, how you doing, brother?
Yeah, we up in here, nigga. We up in here. We drinking, we bottle, we popping bottles, nigga. Popping bottles, nigga.
And I just don't give a damn. But when you come out your mouth with something like that, what you saying and all that stuff you say, then I'm gonna address it.
Welcome to Speak Now, Hold Your Peace, a live broadcast with real conversations about community social issues, politics, business, health, self-care, and more. We broadcast live on the Speak Now, Hold Your Peace Facebook group and the Speak Now, Hold Your Peace YouTube channel. And now, here's your host, Saywuddafeel, Dre.
Welcome to Speak Down, Hold Your Peace. I am Saywuddafeel Andre, and today we have a great show. We are going to speak with Milauna Jackson, an actress who is very good. And I want everyone to join me in welcoming Milauna Jackson. Welcome. How you doing?
I'm fantastic.
All right. You know, I gotta thank you for two things. All right. So one, I gotta thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. It's good to have you. And two, which we'll talk about later in the show, I want to thank you for being part of the movie American Skin. If anybody didn't know our struggles, if there's anybody in this world that didn't know our struggles, they know it now. Specifically, not just African Americans, but specifically Black males. All right. You know, so thank you. I appreciate you being part of that, and I'm glad you're here. I am so glad you're here. I can't wait to get started. So we're gonna get started right away. And
Thank you for having me.
yeah, you know that it's all good. It's all good. And just so y'all know, from my Chi-Town viewers, she's from Chicago. So yeah,
Yes,
she representing hard. You know what I'm saying? So, but so yeah, I want to get right into it. And the first question I want to ask you is, how did you get started in acting?
well, this question comes at an interesting time because I just flew back from Chicago today. And while I was there, I was actually reflecting on my career. I started in a very, I guess, typical way as a kid, just with make believe and imagination, using playtime as an opportunity to connect to characters. I had no idea what I was doing, but I know people were feeling my performance, or they would feel some shit. And I didn't know how to translate this into an actual career, how to utilize the gifts and the talents, and then to um, structure that in a way so that you could profit, make a living. I had to learn that actually after I graduated from high school. But prior to that, I went to community theater. I did church programs. If there was a speech that we had to say on a special Sunday, it was the longest one. I wanted it. Monologues, any kind of dialogue, any kind of reenactment activity. I was the kid that was active in that. I also, when I graduated from eighth grade, my step grandmother gifted me with charm school. She felt like I needed a little bit of etiquette, a lot of bit of etiquette, and grace. And so in that, it introduced me to the act of performance. So there we would do modeling and runway, but we also would have copy. And it was the first time I'd actually had copy commercial, like mock commercial, and then you create something. And so at the end of this program, you compete in New York. And, it's one of those conferences where you have all of these different organizations. They bring their students who are prepared to compete and represent their school in front of agencies. And that was the first time I had won anything in terms of performance. It was this commercial that I had this copy of, and created this whole scenario like I had a brother, and it was my little bratty brother who's always getting on my nerves. And I remember I did that in the commercial, like it was like I kind of brought it to life, and they responded well. I wound up winning. And while I was there, I met this woman who had done this monologue. And it was the first time that I'd actually seen a monologue be performed in a way to evoke emotion from your audience, where you actually engage the audience and where you take them on this journey. As a kid, you don't really understand that. But when you see it, someone else do it, you're like, wow, how do you do that? And she introduced me to her school. It was Curie High School, Madam C. Curie. After the chemist, I left Percy L. Julian, who's also a black chemist, also a chemist who happened to be black. But Percy L. Julian was, it was like the hood school.
Yeah.
So they didn't have, specific programs dealing with arts and allowing students who weren't really athletic and didn't really, gravitate towards sciences and technology, but they were creative. They didn't have that program, at least when I was there. And Curie did. And so my mom transferred me to Curie, and that really, Miss Monk I credit her as being the first teacher that was a working actress slash drama teacher. And she taught me about commitment, and she taught me about character development. And she really instilled a lot of the fundamentals in me. And that was in high school.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. Wow. That's awesome. So let me tell you this, Milana.
Yes.
I must have been 12 years old. But no, you know what? I would say that's when I stopped doing that. But between 8 years old and 12 years old, I can remember I wanted to be a cop when I grew up.
Mm.
Then I said I wanted to be an NFL player, then a basketball
Mm.
player. I said I wanted to be a doctor, mainly because everybody else was saying that. I must have
Right.
switched my role, like what I wanted to be. At one point I said I want to be a freeloader. I didn't know the word then, but what I was thinking, I want to live with somebody. I don't want to work, and I don't want to do nothing. That's me as between the ages of 8 and 12. Have you with with that said, knowing that kids they change all the time. They change what they want to be when they grow up. Was acting something that you always wanted to do as a kid, or did it come to you at a later time in your life?
I was looking at something years ago. I remember it permeated me. Because what you're saying is very common. I was that kid too, but actor was always in that.
Mm.
So it was one point where I remember saying like, okay, I have to narrow this down. I don't remember how old I was, but I remember I said I have to narrow this down. So I said I'm going to be a doctor and an actor. And my mom had a friend at the time, and she was like, "You can't be both. You have to choose one. Those are two different professions going in two different directions." And it was my mom who actually nixed that and was like, "No, you could be anything you want to. You could be Dr. Milauna Jackson, Academy Award winning actress. Okay." And that allowed me a chance to really explore in this journey of acting to make sure this was really what I wanted to do, because I didn't, while it was something that I knew I loved. Again, I didn't know. You grew up on the south side of Chicago, you don't see actors. I never saw a professional actor until I went to high school. And she would do a commercial. She had a part in The Fugitive, and she was like a star to us. I thought you got on TV by majoring in broadcast and journalism, which is what I went to the School of Communications and did their curriculum while I was at Howard University, because I had no idea that if I was to study in fine arts and learn the craft of acting and learn how to perform on stage in theater, that could parlay into a professional career. You're not told that, you're not shown that, you're not taught that until you're actually doing it. And then it's like, oh wow, there's actually a path to get here. But city kids like myself, we don't know about that path. Juilliard, these fine arts, fine institutions that have these very accelerated programs in creative arts don't typically recruit from hood schools.
Right,
You know, they're
right.
not really looking for students to represent America in the way that was familiar to me, which is I grew up with my mom, a single parent, and most of my friends were raised by their moms. I only had one friend. I had a lot of friends who actually was raised by both parents. So it is there's not a lot of activity. So you got to create your own playtime. You got to create your own fun, and that's what we used to do. And so in that, I was the doctor. I was the police officer, I was the lawyer, acting like it. I just didn't know that that was me performing characters. I thought that was like, yeah, I could defend someone whose rights were violated, and then I thought about those who were guilty that I would have to defend. And so that's when I was like, ooh, that's where the ethics part comes in, the commitment to doing something because you love it as opposed to because you enjoy it. And acting always stuck because I love it and I enjoy it.
Wow, wow, that's good. Yeah, 'cause, being a defense attorney, yeah, that's tough, especially if you know they did it.
Yeah, that
Um,
was my thing. I would love to defend people like, because I was very much a stickler against bullies. I had been bullied by adults and by kids. And so I was an advocate for standing up for yourself. My mom taught me that. And I had to apply it to my life a lot growing up. And it was like that was something that I would consider because,
mhm,
as you said, those are things that we hear. But what I encourage, particularly now, in the direction that we're going in terms of technology, is that we began to articulate professions that kids often don't hear, that are still involved with creative processing, but it's also in the digital world. It's in the world that is progressive, and I'm all about Afrofuturism. And so we can apply these creative arts for kids who still like technology and coding, and figuring out how to create websites, digital currency. I'm an advocate for that. So I'm always about kids do kind of glean towards that which they hear. But if they begin to hear more words and they begin to hear more professions that maybe didn't exist when we were kids, we can begin to plant different seeds in the child, besides the typical, professions that
right,
they don't even love.
right, right. Yeah, yeah. Because if you ask kids, what they want to be when they grow up, they you're not gonna find many who say they want to be a scientist or stuff like that, or an astronaut.
Coder. I
Yeah,
mean, it can be a title that that child makes up because it doesn't exist yet. But also the pressure of what do you want to be when you grow up, shouldn't just it shouldn't uh it shouldn't just rest on a kid, because how
right,
does a kid know what they want to be when they grow?
right,
We didn't know. Even if you loved sports, even if you were an athlete since you were 8 to 18, you don't know if that's what you want to be when you become an adult, because you don't know what the profession of an athlete is until you're in the profession. You don't know what it could be owning the team, and all you've been taught is that you can play the game. It could be
right,
creating alliances between countries, and there's all of these things that just, to me, I believe, and I'm a firm believer of reminding ourselves as adults we have the responsibility to introduce kids to things that they haven't seen, which is what I love in my profession. I like playing characters that you don't typically see black people, black women do cinematically.
right,
So
right. As a kid in urban areas, we grow up, we see a lot. Would you say your environment growing up made you stronger or smarter or both?
both,
Okay.
both. Anytime you have an area that isn't thriving in the land of milk and honey, where it's a full flow of funds and resources and opportunities. Anytime you have land like that is going to be impoverished in some way. It's going to be undersourced. It's going to be there's going to be holes that the people have to fill in. And so in surviving that and thriving past that, because remember, I left Chicago. When you leave your home and actually go out to the world or go out into the city or go outside of your comfort zone, you have to apply all of the things that you've learned and all of the things that you would like to learn in surviving. And when you have lack, you figure out how to make it work. And my mother was always like, figure that shit out. That was
Mm-hmm.
her philosophy. And so in that, you have to develop strength. You
Right.
have to develop smarts. My mother was an advocate, and I'm so grateful. She was an advocate of it just not being about academics. I excelled naturally academically. But she was like, you got to get common sense because that's how you survive. And
Right.
she didn't break it down as a woman or as a black woman. She's just like, that's just how you survive. You
Right.
know, one survives by having common sense. Mainly, academia is important and it's vital, but without common sense, we see the smartest individual will be led astray.
Right. Right. I want to get into the movie American Skin.
Okay.
Um, I watched the movie, and this is not it's not a movie that you forget. It's a reminder and a true reality check on how we as African Americans live our lives. I won't say in fear because I don't live my life in fear, but there are some African Americans who live their life in fear because of what they see in this movie and because of our true reality. How did first of all I want to say how did you come about getting that role as Mr. Jefferson?
Right. I had a working relationship with Nate. We worked together in 2008 for the very first time. It was a film, an independent film. Budget was bigger than the film we had for this movie. But we got a chance to work together. And, there was a mutual respect, particularly for our love for the craft and how we both approached it. And that maintained over the years. I'd auditioned for Nate before this for Birth of a Nation. And he came to me, and Twinkie Bird, who was the casting director for that project. I'd also met her some years prior. And so I do feel like having a really solid work relationship is always beneficial, being professional and also passionate about what you do and the stories you tell. And so when I got the script and we talked about it and I gave him some input on my what I would offer this project and what I would like to contribute and how he was very much on board and supportive of it. It came from that. I think one of the things that we learn through employment is the value of your reputation. And I think that it was established long enough to spawn this kind of project, which is, timely for everybody involved. It affected all of us different. Also work with work with Omari
Mm-hmm.
a year prior to that. So it was just kind of like before I knew who else was involved, I knew Nate was doing it. I knew that I liked what he was showcasing in the film, some things that I didn't even think about as a woman, how oftentimes the system uses us to promote that which they want, which is to keep us controlled and contained and
Mm-hmm.
docile, even in very hostile scenarios, although that only applies to Black people.
Yeah.
And I like that he broached this subject matter in a way that forced people to listen. Um, I also have to say, and I say this in many interviews, so if you've heard any other, this will be the one thing I will continue to say. Every woman that I had met who had lost their child by the hands of a man who was taking a vow to protect the community. Once that happens, there's no more trust in the system. And there's a void that is in the face and the eyes and the spirit of that mother because she had to carry this baby for 9 months. And that's just unnatural. So to see a man tell a story about a father who chooses to use a journalist to spread this message in a way where he recognizes it can lead to chaos and destruction was something that I was proud to be a part of.
Right, right. And I was going to ask also, I know I don't know too much about filmmaking, and I do know that when you film, you don't see the entire filming of every part of the movie until it's complete. So once it was done and the movie was complete, and you actually saw the movie, did it hit different? Because I know you had some parts in it, and did it hit different? Like, was it like bam in your face reality? Like, what was your emotion? What were you going through when you actually saw the movie?
I didn't. Huh, it's funny. All of what you said is true. You don't get to see it until the end, and sometimes it takes a very long time to see it. So you have forgotten what you shot. But because of this film, um, we had such a short shooting schedule. It's very condensed. We shot a lot of my scenes all together in consecutive days, and so once we were done, you kind of get that out of your head, and then you're moving on to something else. So you kind of forget some stuff. You forget some elements of the script. You forget some. You have no idea how it's going to be edited and what the ultimate story will be. That's in the hands of the director and the editor, and you that's outside of your control. So when you see it for the first time, it's like fresh eyes, just like a viewer. And I wept. I was crying. It could have been a combination of we were showing this film, it premiered in Venice. So it's out of the country, kind of telling the story of what's happening in America with individuals who typically don't get access to Black Americans, but particularly Americans on a regular basis outside of tourism. And there are Italians who don't speak English who are seeing this film, and it's subtitled. And so that's another perspective because now um, you're able to see them respond in a delay reaction because they have to read it. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of emotions that kind of came up. But the thing that was the general consensus is it's a tragedy.
Right, right,
And
right,
so with any tragedy, the emotion is going to hit the surface.
right. There was one part in the movie that I said, "Wow, this is incredible." And actually, there was a lot of parts of the movie where I was like, "Wow, this is crazy." But I want to read a quote from one of the officers, his script rather. So they were all hot. If you haven't seen the movie, it's not a spoiler alert, but they were all he had them taken hostage in the police station, and the officer said, um, "We." They were one of the inmates was saying that this racism exists, and then the white officer said, "We have a black captain for Christ's sake." And the inmate was like, "Meaning what?" And then he said, "Meaning it's fucking impossible for us to be racist." Now, what do you think of that? Because I can tell you, man, like when I heard that, I was like, is he serious? I'm like, and I'm glad that was put in the script because there are a lot of people who think, well, if you got a black friend, if the officer has a black friend, he ain't racist. And just like people say we have a black president, there's no racism. What do you think about that? What that officer said with that line?
Ignorance. You believe what you want to believe to help you sleep at night. If you feel like it makes you feel better to see people in a specific way so that you don't have to do anything, you don't have to hold anybody accountable, you don't have to be proactive, you can just live your life as you desire without providing charity or assistance um, or giving yourself beyond your comfort zone. Ignorance shrouds that. You shroud it all with ignorance. So you begin to believe that which makes you feel comfortable because I don't want to help. I don't want to extend myself. I don't want to look at my uncle, my father, my mom, my wife, and see them as being a racist. I don't want to go to work and have to think about race, even though when you are training, there's training videos, and they have revealed nationwide that the training that the police officers get is rooted in a prejudice and racism. Um, uh, this isn't new. If this was the first century to experience this would be a different conversation. But we know our history with this country. We know this country's history with us. And ignorance is passed down just like knowledge.
Right,
You can
right,
choose which one you decide to embrace. And again, you know, you can only play dumb for so long.
right, right. If I'm correct, I don't remember what movie it was. If I'm correct, you played a wife who lost their husband, correct?
Yes, 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 yes.
So how how does that
Mm.
compare to playing a mother who lost a child? Because a husband, I'm not downplaying anyone who lost a husband by far. I'm not doing that. But what is the difference? I mean, is it does it feel any different? Like how were you feeling playing a mother that lost a son? And the second part of that question is when you approach the cop, you spoke for like so many mothers who lost their children to cops, police officers. Tell me Tell me how you prepared for that.
Mhm.
Was it scripted, or did they just say, Milana, do what you got to do and say what you got to say?
Yes. Absolutely. Nate said, well, first, let's take it back. You mentioned the film. The film was actually the film I worked with Nate on, which is called Blood Done Sign My Name. And
Hmm.
it is based on a real woman who lost her husband because three white men decided to take his life. This is very common. It was set in North Carolina. Um, but the film is about this pastor who begins to um, pursue some sense of justice, I guess, in the town. And then there Ben Chavis, who's played by Nate Parker, his involvement with his family and their movement and how these movements kind of happen. This scenario was quite different. That's set in the 70s, so I just have to say that it was set in the 70s,
Hmm.
based off a real woman. So you want to honor a person's life or their story, at least, whether you know them or not, whether they're famous or not. It's a human being that exists, and their story matters. This was a scenario that was motivated by a relationship with Nate and his nephew. My relationship to the project as a mom made it difficult because I am a woman who desires to be a mother. Um, there is no replacing a child. I don't care how much you love a husband, a partner, a significant other. If you choose to get back out there in the fight for love, that can be another memory. But a child is a part of you. So to portray, before I even reach motherhood, to portray a mother losing their child, having knowing personally women and meeting Mamie Till Mobley and Sabrina Fulton after they both lost their child, as an even greater responsibility because these women, all of them, including my godmother, Tracy Lee, who lost her son to the hands of the Inglewood Police Department, you know, there's this hope that the system is going to do something for your baby. This time is going to be different. This time is going to there's going to be justice. They're going to understand and see that this adult um, did not treat this person as a human being, as an American citizen who has rights, because that's really what this is about, is that we have rights as American citizens. Um, and so to see a cop after being told that this cop was well within the rights of protecting themselves and was acquitted of the crime. Nate said, I do not have to tell you how to respond as a black woman in America. I'm just gonna say go. And I just began to vomit these things that came up. And one of them, was coward. Now it's funny because my mom was like, she was expecting me to curse the man out. And I was like, well, that's what you think about when you say, well, what would I say? Like
Mm-hmm.
this one would say, I'm gonna tell that motherfucker. Like, but this was like an emotionally filled, you know, this was a emotionally filled visceral reaction to someone who looked responsible for stripping life from me after I had given birth to it.
Mm.
You know, this was pre George Floyd calling out to his mama who had already been deceased. So his desire was to get out of this pain and into the arms of someone who loved him. This was, 2019. So I didn't have a lot of time, but I did have the compassion for these women. And I also was able to know and possess knowledge about Emmett Till and his life, Tamir Rice and that scenario. And so I did my work as an artist and as an actress and empathized.
Right.
And I had to do that take a lot of times because that's just what you do in film. It's not just one good take. It's not two good takes. It's let's just do takes until we got it.
Right.
And that means from every angle,
Mm-hmm.
that means from every that all pieces have to operate for this to make sense. And so we did that take a lot of times. And Nate was very, as a leader of this film, as a director, I have to say, I appreciated him really holding my hand and supporting me because I was letting out everything that was in me. And, when he picked me up, he had to, because I was like, I'm gonna go for him. And it can't look like I'm gonna pretend attack this man. I'm going to, charge. And I had to do that a number of times. And that was one of the most difficult, if not even the first scene I think I shot in the film, if I'm not mistaken, maybe. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
been the first. Yeah, it was difficult.
Oh, wow. You know, my job, I have it can be a stressful job. And, a lot of times we hear people say, leave work at work, and because it's mental health and I have to hear some of the things that mothers and families are going through with their child, it gets hard to leave work at work. Um, so did you have any issues with that? Like just leave, not so much leaving it or forgetting about it, but just kind of like, okay, I'm not working anymore. This doesn't have to go through my mind. I don't have to think about it. But it's kind of hard because I remember Nate saying something in reference to, I think it was I forgot what interview it was, but he was saying this is not the type of movie where you, if I'm right, the words, I may not be 100%. This is not the type of movie where you go see and then you go out for ice cream later and you don't think about it. And I was just like, you're right. I still think about the movie. It's just not like, oh, that was a good movie. It's a huge difference when you watch a good movie that's, the bank robber got away, whatever. And then when you watch a good movie, a reality movie that deals with you and that gives you a constant reminder of what you're going through, and you have to act this stuff out. So is it hard to not so much not think about it, but just take your mind away from it after work?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Some days I would, one day in particular, because I only worked 3. Because again, this wasn't a long shooting schedule. So one day I stayed after I had finished working because I wasn't ready to go home. I wanted to kind of decompress and remind myself that this is a passion project for Nate and for the cast and all of the crew who decided to do a low budget film, which means you're not getting paid. Essentially, it's
Right.
it's because you believe in the project. But in that becomes dual responsibility because you got to take care of yourself too. And so that's the mental health. And particularly when you're pretending to um, experience a tragedy such as losing your child. So I stayed and I wound up, talking to some other actors, and I found out, which I had no idea, that Nate had actually provided many of the crew and cast roles to formerly incarcerated men. I don't know if any women, but definitely men. And one of them was the actor. His name is Chris, um, and he played the Muslim in the film. And so I didn't know, he was just there, and we were just talking, and it helped because remembered, I was reminded in that moment, this man never acted in his life. This was his first time ever doing anything like this. He's a poet, and it was like the duty as an artist. There's a responsibility that comes with tapping into your gifts and your talents. There's a responsibility that comes with that. And a lot of times that responsibility is necessary for other people. And it's not about you. And in that helps you to come out of whatever you may be feeling so that you can say, the beautiful thing is that I am portraying a woman who has lost their child, but my godmother is still experiencing that loss.
Right, right.
And so while I can sit in the possibilities of what could happen if this scenario went down, there are women who have actually experienced it. And so with them, I extended compassion, and always am never taking that for granted.
Mhm.
Um, and then after, this is just necessary on any project. When you do something like this, you also have to take a break afterwards and really reflect on your life and live it and really live it. And so I did. And I celebrated my birthday that year, which is something I typically don't do. Not, shortly thereafter filming. And then that's when we found out we were accepted into the Venice Film Festival. Well, that's when I found out, I'll say, when I was enjoying my birthday.
Mhm.
So it was really about me reminding myself of the value of life. I
Right,
remind ourselves that there is value, and
right,
how when we have it, we have the power to dictate how we want to spend our lives.
right,
And
right,
so I remember that when I come out of projects like this. How are
right,
you choosing to spend your life in
right.
your American skin?
Uh, I got a comment from one of the viewers. It says,
Well,
Milana, your passion comes through. I know you will continue to get great roles. And I gotta admit, yeah, your passion does come through. That was Willette Marie from
thank you.
Hampton, Virginia.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet. I appreciate that.
Yes, yes. So, um, you
Thank you,
know,
Black.
a typical, I'm not gonna say typical white family, but you think about a typical white family, they're teaching their children at a young age, okay, this is how you throw a ball, this is how you play tennis, this is how you do that. This is how you play soccer or so whatever. So, you're outside on the lawn teaching your kids. We as African Americans, at that age, we're teaching our kids these days how to keep our hands up, how not to move, how to say yes sir, no sir, how to not reach for something so quick, how to tell the officer, I know officer, I'm going to reach in my left pocket to get my license out. Um, how do you prepare if you were a mom? How would you prepare your child for that reality? Like, how would you prepare for your child for that reality in terms of when they go to the store, when they walk to their friend's house, or when they come home past 11 o'clock at night? How do you prepare? How do we prepare our kids for that?
What's interesting is I grew up with a lot of cops in my mom's life. She had a lot of male cop friends. She needed it. She needed it.
Hmm.
So I wasn't taught that growing up. I would see my mom talk her way out of tickets. I would see this be her approach police officers who maybe pulled her over. And this is a woman, mind you, is quite different from men. And I need to make that abundantly clear. I am aware that it's quite differently for Black men specifically. But my mom, I just didn't see her treat this exchange as if she didn't have power.
Mhm.
Um, and I thought about that a lot because my feelings towards police officers is not rooted in any trust. Like that trust is gone at this point. Um, and so I often think about that. My prayer is in while raising my child, be it a boy or a girl, have I will have full authority of how to show my child and teach my child that they are a human being
Mhm.
and they do have rights. I am an advocate, obviously, of being wise and how you raise your children to make sure that they come home. However, I also believe in standing up for your rights. I do believe that you don't have to open your mouth, you don't have to say anything. Um, I recognize having been pulled over by cops before, it's a heightened scenario.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm just driving from an audition mad, crying to my agent about how I think I just screwed it up. And, I might have missed, the speed limit and get pulled over. So I'm in a heightened state of hysteria and, not understanding why this cop isn't seeing me as this woman crying and in need for something. Something's clearly going on, you know. And so you're not going to be a community leader. I see in this moment your desire is to meet a quota and to issue as many tickets as possible. And so there's nothing that I could possibly say that's going to change your mind. So here's my driver's license and my insurance, you motherfucker. And then I pull out. I understand that as a woman, I can get
Oh.
away with that. I'm not ignorant in that. I do know that.
Oh,
Um,
man.
so I have not figured that out yet. My prayer is, and I'm gonna be honest with you, by the time I am a mother, my partner and I, we can sit down, we can have that conversation, and it'll be something that we both stand by and behind.
Mhm.
And I can answer this, in the truest way. Because I can say a whole lot of stuff before I become a parent
Mhm.
and then become a parent, and then I don't even want my child to leave for fear that they may not come back. I understand. My mom still treats me like that, and I'm a
Right.
grown ass woman. So I understand that's different when you're in it. So
Right.
I have
Right.
to be transparent and say I have no idea, but I do know I was not raised with that information. But
Right.
that has not changed how I view my relationship with police officers, and my lack of trust in them doing what they, I believe, should took a vow to do, which is to protect me
Right.
in
Right.
a way that makes me feel comfortable, not just women but also men.
Right. Right. One thing that I wanted to bring up, and I always seem to bring this up when I'm talking about police brutality, and it gets deep with people I talk to with about that particular topic, and they say usually they'll respond. This particular person responded, "Well, um, black people, we killing each other." So my thing is, and I hear that a lot. So my thing is, my response to them is, okay, so because there is some violence and killing amongst each other, does that still mean, does that mean we have to ignore what they're doing to us? Because they make it sound like, okay, we got to stop killing each other first before we start protesting about others killing us. And I just think I think it's kind of foolish to say that. Um, to ignore police brutality because we are, um, killing ourselves. And I'm not saying we need to protest that too, but to ignore police brutality because we're killing each other. That gets me all the time. What's your position on that?
I think it's a distraction from actually coming to a resolution. This is a Christian nation. As much as we don't want to admit it, this is Christianity is the primary religion, and Cain and Abel were brothers. So brothers were killing brothers before there was a need to police a nation. So this ideology that we can't multitask and we can't approach various issues at the same time, simultaneously, maybe that's where the answer lies. Because if I cannot trust someone who has taken a vow and that to service me and my family, when I'm having issues with my brother, if I cannot trust that, then what do?
Right.
You typically take matters into your own hands. And I think that, I was listening to one of your previous episodes and where I recognized something came up, and I'm glad you broached this subject, is we weren't taught conflict resolution. Even in this country, is not something typically that is taught, how to resolve conflict. You have these two people who have opposing views about whatever. How do you resolve it, or how do you deal with it? Two people who are passionate about each other, who are in the same community, maybe love this same, I love my family and you love your family, but I feel like you love your family more than me. So I have to show you, how to treat me based on respect. Because usually that's, as people feel disrespected. And so I had to teach you how to respect me. That's conflict resolution. But if police officers can't resolve conflict and they have the weapons and the devices to create either a hostile environment or a peaceful environment, they have all of that. They are trained for months. Who knows how long? I don't know, but they're trained. They can't figure out how to resolve conflict. Why would you expect someone who has never been taught how to resolve conflict? They've only been exposed to conflict resolution through a specific way. Why would you expect that is easy or simpler when there's no training there? It's just two human beings who happen to grow up in environments that, again, as I told you from the beginning, like myself, who was taught how to survive. And how to thrive. And the survival means that you have to stand up for yourself, because your predators are always going to prey on the next victim. You from Jersey or from New York? I'm
Jersey.
Looking at the Giants. I imagine, Jersey. Okay.
Yeah.
So you from Jersey. See, I've been to East Orange, New Jersey, Newark, New Jersey. I spent some time over there. I know the Rutgers, and I know I've seen that communities where have a concentrated amount of Black people, is a lot of love. But in that is the antithesis of it. That's just human nature. You go to countries and you have a concentrated a population in an area, and conflict comes up. There's usually not other people coming out unless they're trying to dominate the land, unless they're declaring war. It's internal conflict.
Right. Wow.
But that doesn't mean that it needs to be the main and only focus, and then we'll deal externally. That just diminishes our abilities, and it makes it seem as if we can't attack these things from both ends.
Right. Wow. Woo, you spitting that fire. Woo, I tell you. So we're gonna wrap up this interview, but I got a surprise for you.
What? I love
surprise. It's a game. It's a game surprise. You got to do it. You got to knock this out. All right. So all right. So we're gonna do it, but I'm gonna I just want the audience to know this game that we're about to do is sponsored by Green Sister Botanicals, plant-based hair and body care. So make sure you check them out at greensister.com. That's greensister.com, okay? So you make sure you check them out because they're sponsoring this particular session of the show, okay? So, are you ready?
Yes.
I'm going to explain the game to you. Let me just get my stuff here. All right, so this is the last part of the show. I'm going to give you a name of a character you played, and you got to tell me what movie or TV show it was from. You ready for that?
God.
How's your memory? How's your memory?
Well, hit me with it.
All right, you ready? Now I'm gonna give you some easy ones, but then they might get harder. Okay, so here we go. All right, let me get my stuff here because you're about to get it. All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
Sydney Glass.
Oh, come on, man. That's Lincoln Heights.
all right. Okay, all right.
Glass, baby.
You set it off up in that joint, boy. I was like, okay, y'all better give her grandmother stuff. All right, next one. Kristen Schaaf.
Oh, that's Aquarius. Housewife turned Black Panther Party inductee.
All right. This one I don't have a name, but you was a hip hop dancer. You was like,
oh, that's Save the Last Dance.
Yes. Wow, you got a good memory. Okay, Milauna. Okay. All right, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Susan.
Hold on.
I'll give you a hint. It came out in 2010, I think. If I'm correct. Susan.
So I feel like, is it NCIS?
No, I'll give you another chance.
Sure. Oh, wait.
You need a hint?
Give me, 2010?
I think it was.
Yeah, give me another hint.
It has the word forward in it.
Oh, flash forward.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a history behind that role. I'll talk about that later.
All right. Okay, you ready? I got two more.
Okay.
Gina Pratt.
Oh, that's FBI. That's my mom's favorite role.
You got it. And the last one, well, I got to ask you something after that. The last one is Renee Atwood.
How to Get Away with Murder, baby.
Yes. So this is my last question to you, and then we're going to get out of here.
Okay.
So every time I watch this show, I got to hear, or if I see his picture posted on Facebook, I got to hear all these women saying, oh, he's so fine. Even my wife talking about, he's fine. Leroyce Hawkins. Now you in an episode of Chicago PD, okay? Right. And I'm asking this question for the women. How was that working with him? Was there a natural attraction, or is just business as usual? Or you don't have to answer that either. You can give me your professional answer.
No, I'm gonna give you my real answer, which is professional.
Okay.
I mean, it's always beneficial and beautiful when shit is natural.
Right.
You said the women say he's an attractive man, but the men say I'm an attractive woman. So what you see are two attractive people who both have a genuine love for the craft, who both share a genuine love for the city of Chicago, and both love playing. Like I think this was his first love interest. So, this is going to be the first. It's going to be me. So, some people make it easy and some people make it difficult. And Luis is the kind of actor who, is a giving actor, and he didn't make it difficult. That's not always easy. Some people don't want to open up to you and show sides of them, and when it comes to displaying love.
Right.
And we both were. So.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, Milauna, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you coming on. It's been so good. This was one of the best interviews I've ever had. I mean, you were so great. The passion was there, and you answered every question, and that was the deep questions, and they were very good answers. So I'd like to thank you. Stay on. I'm just gonna head out here. Everybody, I want to thank you for tuning in and watching. I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking your time to watch. And just tune in next Wednesday for the next episode. We love you and peace out. We're out of here. Have a good one, everybody.